to all the fantastic sitting there. A number of decades ago, people sat down like this and filled the streets of Melbourne protesting against the Vietnam War. Some of you who are here today were probably on that protest. It was called the moratorium movement. And people came together in demonstrations like this and said they would block the streets of Melbourne until they got action from their government to withdraw Australian troops from Vietnam. And the image of you here today is very similar to the images that were published back then. There was huge outrage at that time about those protests. Police were dragging people off the street, politicians were saying this is terrible, mums and dads were telling their children that they shouldn't go, but people did. And what happened? What happened was that Australia elected a government that withdrew troops from Vietnam. People power won. What is the lesson of that movement? The lesson is that sometimes it's not enough to have a good argument. It's not enough to have all the facts on your side. It's not enough to have the science and the truth. Sometimes you need to act. Sometimes you need to disrupt things. Sometimes you need to make a noise. Sometimes you need to force change. We're at the front here of the ALP Victorian ALP State Conference. The people inside have heard the argument. They know the facts. Their own chief scientist, the federal chief scientist appointed by Kevin Rudd, has told them that we only have several years to take action. John Brumby, Green Paper, released a few weeks ago, said that Victoria faces a disaster from climate change. But the document was just more options and more possibilities of action. We've had the argument, we've had the discussion. Apart from Steve Fielding, no one else in this country really believes that climate change isn't real. So, why aren't they acting? That's right, get on with it. The reason they're not acting is because of the power and the weight and the strength of the polluters, of the fossil fuel industry, the coal industry, who want to keep on polluting. That's right, Shane. And it's a bit like what's happened with the tobacco industry. First they said cigarettes didn't cause cancer. Then they realised they were losing that argument, and so then they said, but it's okay, we've got low-tar cigarettes. A bit like clean coal. What was the strategy? We know what the strategy was, because the same people who come up with the strategy for the polluters on climate change wrote the strategy for the tobacco industry. Delay, delay, delay. That's what we're in at the moment. We need to force change. We don't have time to win this, keep putting the same argument. We need to force change. We need to create a movement like that moratorium movement that brought our troops home from Vietnam, that creates a counterweight to the weight of the fossil fuel industry. That's why we've asked you to sit down here today, because we need to start taking action together that will force change. And if it means that Kevin Rudd loses office, and if John Brumby loses lose office, so be it. We don't care who is in government. We will still be on the streets. We will still be organising our community, regardless of who is in government, to force this change through. We have to create a movement that can force this change. What will it take? What will it take to get the change we need? Well, let's be realistic about what it takes. It's going to take all of us to be doing more than what we're doing now. We need to be organising in our community and mobilising in our local climate action groups. We need to be organising in our workplace. Why aren't there union banners here today? We need to be thinking about how to do that. And if it takes us telling our friends and neighbours and getting them out, we will do it. If it takes door knocking everyone in our streets, we will do it. If it takes organising public meetings and community events in our local community, we will do it. If it takes sitting down in the street and blocking the headquarters of the big polluters and occupying coal mines, we will do it. Because that is the only way we're going to get change. We want to get moving, so I won't talk much longer, but I want to finish with one other story from history. 20 years ago, people in Eastern Europe, in the Soviet Union, were in the grip of Stalinism. They wanted change, they wanted freedom. They came out on the street and they produced that change. One of the things that they did in Czechoslovakia was when thousands of people were out on the streets, they wanted to make a noise. They couldn't do what we did and have loudspeakers and slides and stuff like that. They'd get carried away by the secret police. But they all had keys. And they got out their keys and they shook those keys. And I want you to do the same thing now. Get out your keys. John Brumby, Kevin Rudd, unlock renewable energy. Unlock funding for solar power. Unlock funding for wind. Geothermal. It's time to take that money from the coal industry and have public investment in renewable energy. It's time to switch to Plan B. Don't pass the CPRM. Renewable energy. That's what we want. Solar, wind, geothermal. We can do it.